There is actually, so everyone knows, there is a real dog.
Okay. That'll be fun. Sometimes it sounds like I have Tourette's because I'll be like, Fui bleiben! It's like, it just turned into like a German.
Please do that at least 3 times.
Welcome into the Ben Burnett Show. My name is Ben Burnett. This is an Tappan Media podcast. My guest today is a newly promoted Sergeant Mark Tappan. Welcome in, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Mark is a good guy. I went to church with him for a long time. He runs the K9 Unit for the Alpharetta Department of Public Safety, and by all accounts, his director chief John Robinson told me earlier this week that he is one of the finest trainers of canines in the country. And I said, I'm tired of talking to dirty politicians. I want to talk to people that actually do things.
I like it.
Welcome in, man.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to get started with this. How long have you been in law enforcement? How did you get started? Talk about your life previous to that, because you're a pretty well-rounded guy beyond.
Oh, I appreciate it. So do you want the whole life story? To me, it's all puzzle pieces that have fit together.
We want the whole life story, and if anybody, he was really kind enough to bring his whole arsenal of animals today. So we've got a zoo here at Tappan Media.
I wish he did like animal impersonations, like Mattis be a chicken, but he doesn't. Well, it all started when I was a young lad and had no direction in life. And my intent, actually, when I was in high school and going into college, was I wanted to be a game show host.
You'd be a good one.
I don't know. But that was my plan. And what I realized was I was in my freshman year of college, and I was taking lots of zoology classes, which I was pretty decent at because I enjoyed it, and a lot of PE classes, and I was failing everything else. And so I realized my dream of being a game show host was probably not going to be real. And I lacked a lot of things in my life. I lacked discipline, responsibility. I was kind of spoiled growing up. Don't tell my parents that. They were just wonderful people. But I lacked some things.
But you were not a wonderful child.
I was a oh, look at there, real life.
He's actually got people calling for his animals. He's like,
that was just a traffic accident. Not that exciting. No, I was a good kid. Like, I've always had, like, I believe I was made for what I do now. I've always had a strong sense of justice. Like, I can't stand injustice. It's just like a personality trait. So that was always in me. I just didn't have discipline. I didn't have self-responsibility or any of those kinds of things. And one of the people I respected most in my life was my uncle. And don't do that.
Don't do that.
I'm not allowed to.
So everybody knows. Everybody wants to tap the table. We ban tapping the table. That's the only rule. Should have said that
Usually
before we started.
Usually I like to slam on podiums and get my point across. Okay. You have to tell me again, probably. I'll try my best.
You're good.
My uncle was one of the finest men I knew, and he very proudly displayed all of his Marine Corps regalia all around his house and spoke of the lessons that he learned in the Marine Corps of character and self-discipline and responsibility, and I knew those things I was lacking. And so without telling my parents, I ended up joining up in the Marine Corps and doing that for 4 years, which I loved. I loved every second of it. It taught me all the things that I needed. And also, while I was in the Marine Corps, I had always called myself a Christian growing up. But what I realized when I got into the Marine Corps, it kind of exposed my hypocrisy and some of my moral depravity to an extent of realizing, man, what I'm claiming and the way that I'm living is not the same. And so it forced me to make a decision, and I did, and get my life over to Jesus. And it was kind of cool. While I was in the Marine Corps, I ended up volunteering at a church. And
where were you stationed?
I was out in Camp Pendleton, California.
Yeah, it's not an ugly spot.
Oh, it was nice. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I used to say, like, the climate, when we go back and visit.
It's really tough.
Oh, there's no humidity ever. And you walk outside, it's like God giving you a hug.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
So we digress. Go on.
Pendleton, though, is not necessarily the
not as
same.
Nice.
No, it's a lot of hills and dust and dirt. But I love my time in. It was exactly what I needed. But I started volunteering at a church, and I was getting out of the Marine Corps. I was going to go back to Louisiana, where I'm from. I was going to go to Bible college and hopefully pursue a career in ministry. Oh, Sorry. That's one of the times my dog just stood up and I had to tell him to lay down.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's good stuff. He's right here with me. Anyway, so the kids that I was volunteering with in the youth group, they're like, "You're gonna leave us?" And I'm like, "No, I'll never leave you." So I ended up instead. I've never been. I'm kind of a spur of the moment guy. I don't plan necessarily, and so my plan was I was going to keep volunteering at the church, and my vocation plan was to hang Christmas lights.
Yeah, it's a great strategy.
That's a good life.
You needed to go back to college.
I should have. Yeah. So anyway, I was like, yeah, I'm going to stay in California, Southern California. You know, not a cheap place to live.
Nope.
But I was going to hang Christmas lights because I had figured out that it was going to fooey off. Bowie. That's my dog Mattis, who's laying down. He's supposed to be laying down beside me, but he keeps standing up because he wants to play. So anyway,
we interviewed him earlier, so everybody knows he was
pictures
great.
Forthcoming.
Yeah,
he was much better. So anyway, that was my plan to hang Christmas lights. What ended up happening was I fell off a ladder from the Christmas lights a few times. I wasn't very good at it. Imagine that. But what did happen was the church hired me on staff. And so I started off as a intern in youth ministry, and then it kind of grew into youth pastor, and then I was the junior high pastor, then I was the high school pastor, and then I was over the youth ministry, and I did that for about 10 years out there. And went through some church splits and politics and things, and kind of missing the South, and decided to move from Southern California because it's a different world. The climate's great, but it is a different world.
It's not the same.
No,
it's not bad, but it's not the same.
No, and I grew up just used to Southern people, and
sure.
Southern people are very nice people. Not that there's not nice people all over the globe, because I've found that to be true, but just it was a different way of living. Like yes ma'am, yes sir is commonplace here.
Don't call me ma'am. Don't open my door. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. Ma'am. Anyway, that's a great another story that we could go into. So I ended up putting in only one application for a police department, and it was Alpharetta Police Department because my sister lived in Smyrna, and she kind of talked to some people that she knew, and they said Alpharetta's the place to be. And I didn't know anything about the area, and so it's the only place I put in an application, and I flew back and forth a couple times for the testing. And this is too when like hundreds of people were going through the testing. I mean, it was a very desired department to be on, which it still is.
And that's where you got started in law enforcement.
That's where I got started 13 years ago.
From California,
moved to Georgia.
So how does that transition take place? Did something that you learned in the Marine Corps stick with you, that you missed some aspect of that life, that camaraderie, that sense of being attached to a unit, that sense of justice? Is that what drew you to law enforcement? Because moving 2,000 miles to a place that you'd never been, there's certainly risk there.
A little bit. Once again, it goes back to my character, right? Is I'm spur of the moment. And I believe that was what I was called to do. And so I was going to do it. And Mattis, off. Go Bowie. I actually went into the Marine Corps with the idea that I was going to get out and be a police officer. Mm-hmm. What I like, honestly, if you look back at my life, there was some great maturation that happened in the Marine Corps. However, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I don't think I would have been a very good police officer because it needed some more maturation. And so, kind of the youth pastor.
You needed to get over being in the Marine Corps a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I just
my dad.
Yes,
my dad did 20 years.
Okay.
And retired as a major, so I've lived all over the country.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And so, in some, it's not in the same way, but I understand it's a fraternity. It's a very, 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 very tight fraternity, and some of those folks we still get Christmas cards from today, which I think is awesome because we lived in Hawaii, and some of our family's best friends still. They chose to get out there. What a great place. If you think the weather's awesome in San Diego, keep going west. But just to say it, we certainly appreciate that. That's if you're going to go in the enlisted route, it's certainly not a 5-star hotel.
No, it's not.
But there's plenty of good people in.
Especially when you're in the infantry, by the way.
Yeah, way to choose that one. You should.
I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Enlisted infantry. There's that sounds like a dirty job. The first guy in. You've probably got lots of good training. So tell me this: after how long had you been with the Department of Public Safety and police until you got interested in canines? How did that process take place?
Well, I was always interested. I just thought they were fascinating from day one. I remember we had an old, and he's over in Johns Creek now, but it was Sergeant Curry at the time, and he had a humongous dog, and I think it was Blue. I think was his dog, and Blue was about, like, Mattis is big. He's 97 pounds.
Mattis is big.
Yeah.
And Mattis?
Blue was like 120 pounds.
Yeah.
Or that's how I remember him anyway.
So talk a little bit about that process, and then I want to ask you about the different attributes of the different types of dogs you guys
Oh
look
yeah,
to.
I'd love to. So from day one, I was interested because I saw something. I was fascinated by what the dogs did, how they contributed to police work, and then it was funny too. I remember when I was on SWAT, and we do demonstrations all the time, and just as a police officer, no one talks to you, and I'd look over at the canine, and they just had a group of people that were fascinated by this dog, and it's something that just sociologically, people are attracted. Like
My kids
it
love
softens
all
it softens
the
a police officer
Oh, yeah.
when you have a dog,
Even
and
if he's 100 pounds.
yeah, absolutely. Especially because I've taught him some tricks and stuff to make it even more so. And I thought if we as police officers can take advantage of that, that would be a huge bridge. And so that's actually one of the things that we do a little, like we are very intentional about in our K9 unit, is we try to be very approachable. If you ask to pet our dogs, the answer is always absolutely, please. Unless we're like he's actively hunting for a bad guy.
Sure.
Then you might not want to pet him. But it's just, I want super social dogs. And what I did was I saw people in the sport world that had dogs as pets, but they still did sport and they did it effectively. And I said, if we up our standard a little bit, we can accomplish this. So I saw this bridge that could be created. And so when it took me about, I think, 6 years to get into canine, did various other things before that, but a dog opened up, and so I interviewed and tested for the process and ended up getting my first dog, Nico. And it was just, I was so excited about it, and I think I have the best job in the world.
How long? What's the process like once you go through that selection? You get down selected to take a dog, if that's the right way to say. How long does it take to adequately train one, and how trained are they when you begin working with them?
Well, so it's different how I started and how, like, we have a guy out getting a dog right now. He's getting what they call a green dog, but his dog's not really green because it's been through 12 months of training already. And so he's going to join in the training now, and he'll go through a 6-week course. My initial course was 10 weeks, and my dog had experience. I did not. So my dog had already been on the street with another handler. He ended up retiring, and so I got his dog. And so it was a little bit different for me than it was for him.
How does that who needs more work once the preparation? You do not work with a dog. How do you select a dog?
That's a great question. So the first thing,
and how old are they?
Well, and it's changed because our old practice used to be is you go to a school and they give you a dog, and what you find out in the canine world is a lot of vendors are like, oh, okay, well, they have bad dogs too that they need to get rid of. So if someone shows up and they don't test dogs, that's where the bad dogs go.
Right.
For that guy. So anyway, and not all vendors. I'm just saying in general.
You get bad apples and everything.
Correct. What I do is, for the dog that we just selected, and for Mattis and every dog that's on our unit right now, is I go out and I test dogs. And the way you test dogs is I'll throw a ball. And how hard do they go after that ball? Because all of our training is reward-based through, it's called prey drive, right? So a ball, when it's moving, it represents prey. So how hard will they go after that prey? Because that tells me, okay, he really wants that. Then there's something called hunt drive that we're looking for too. And that's, okay, he can't see the prey anymore, but he knows it's out there. How intense will he look for it? So you throw the ball, you take him back, you spin him around so he's lost sight of the ball. and now he has to use his nose to find it. And how hard are they looking for it? Because how are they gonna find people that they can't see? How are they gonna find dope, whatever it is explosives, whatever you're looking for? So that's the hunt drive. Then you have something called possession, like how bad does he want to keep it? Because that's his value in it, right? So when he finds that ball or stick, whatever you throw,
latches on.
Yep. How bad does he want to keep it? Right. So if you try to pull it, he tries to keep it for himself, or he puts his paw over it or whatever. He's keeping it as his own. That's really good. And then we do something called perseverance, where I'll put the ball where he can see, underneath something where he can't get to it. Like Mattis was one where I thought he couldn't get to it, but he ended up flipping it over and getting to it anyway. So it was like great score on the perseverance. So those are kind of the tests that I want to see, because a dog is extremely trainable. The one thing it doesn't test is their learning curve, and that's kind of hard to test for initially because that's shown over time how quick they pick up concepts.
Do you seek out specifically 2 or 3, 4 breeds? How does that? Because they're not all the dogs in the K9 unit. They're not the same. You've got little Raider, who's this little sweet lab.
Right. Yeah. No, she's full lab.
Yeah, she's full lab.
35 pounds.
And then Mattis is he's not small.
No.
If he were running full bore, Daniel missed the video, but when we took a picture when we were first starting, and Mattis was sitting in the seat, and Sergeant Tappan asked Mattis to get down. Well, Mattis jumped on the table, and my eyes were enormous because it looked like he was looking straight at me. I was like, "Oh God, this is it." So
that's awesome.
So talk about that. Are you a part of the selection of each of the dogs?
Yes.
And do you have other people inside the department that you rely on that look for other things as well, or is it just one man on one mission?
It's me. And I am. So since I've been in K9, they threw me through a trainer's course, and I've sought out a lot of other training too, just because this is my passion and I absolutely love it. So I'm kind of the what they call the authority on the dogs. And to answer your question as far as what breeds, there's typically 3 breeds that are used primarily in police work. The German Shepherd, the Belgian Malinois, and the Dutch Shepherd. For dual-purpose dogs, dual purpose means that they'll do patrol work, which is tracking, apprehension, article search, and then also one other discipline, which it could be explosives, it could be drugs. So all of our dogs right now are narcotics and patrol work. And then you have Raider, who's just a single purpose. Her single purpose is narcotics. And so she is in the schools to build community relationships. Correct.
But she also has a set of skills.
A special set of skills
that are used in the community. Because I think you guys, by and large, 80%, maybe more, 90% of the time, use her because people flock to that little girl.
And that was one of the things when Officer Ritchie proposed the idea. Was he wanted something that was approachable. And so it was different. I think my dog's approachable, but to some people he's not. You know, like I said, I try to make him as cute as possible.
Yeah,
but he's a cute dog.
If you're 3, my youngest is 3. Like he thinks Mattis is a gorilla.
And you'll see some people are just terrified of him, and some people, I'll try to help them overcome their fears. But Raider, a 35-pound lab, that's adorable. Sweet. But she's fantastic at her job too. Her hunt and her prey are ridiculous. Her drives.
How old is she?
You'd have to ask him specifically, but I think she's about 2.5.
So how long will Mattis, what's their service tenure? How long will they be in care, in service? I won't say the life expectancy, because at some point, our buddy over here is gonna, you'll find another animal.
Oh, don't tell me that.
He can still live with you.
I'll tell you, to answer your question first, hopefully he's almost 6 now. Hopefully he'll make it till 9 or so, in his service career. He's the best dog I've ever trained. And we have some amazing dogs on our
So
unit.
he's a family member.
He totally is. He plays with my kids. He goes home with me. Like all the dogs, they
live.
interact with our families.
Yeah.
Because I want to make them super social. I want to make sure that they're used to social environments. I want to make sure that
Kids hanging all over him.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you being a city council member, you wouldn't appreciate too much if he starts biting preschoolers.
No.
Yeah.
No, that would go poorly.
I believe so.
It's a great way to be on the cover of the paper for all the wrong reasons.
Right. So anyway, that's why I don't want a liability on the end of the leash, right? A taser that could go off at any moment, right? Is kind of the way that I look at it. I want a dog that's clear-headed, calm, in complete control.
So let's go through this. Let's take Mattis specifically. Talk about his name. I think that the story here, knowing how it came about, is incredible. But for the average person in North Fulton, you have to listen to Mark tell this story.
Man, that's a high bar.
Well,
I hope it's as interesting as you think it
it's
is.
a high bar because just talk about how you came up with that and the correspondence that went on.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Because there's not very many people, regardless of how you feel. I'm not going to put you in a political spot of how you feel about the president. The Secretary of Defense who just left was widely seen as the guy who got like 98 out of 100 senators to confirm him. And that does not happen very often anymore.
No. So my dog's name, when I went to select him, his name was originally Cayman. And I like the name Cayman. I think it's a great name. He would have kept it, except for my son's name is Caden. And so I didn't want to be yelling at the dog or vice versa, yelling at my son and the dog to be like, whoa, I'm sitting here, man.
Yeah.
Or my son, like to yell at him and tell him, go get in the kennel. And I look and see my 12-year-old sitting in a dog kennel. That would be bad. So, oof. So I changed his name and I was looking for some different names. And there's a lot of people that I respect. Being a military guy, a lot of times I go to military as, fine leaders is what I look at as fine leaders that have good character.
Schwarzkopf was too long.
Schwarzkopf is not a good name for a dog. And he was Army. So,
yeah.
However, one of my first choices was going to be actually Stonewall Jackson. Just as a man, he was a fantastic Christian man, a man of character. Universally, troops loved him, and he was a great tactician. He was incredibly intelligent. So I really respect those things, that he had a combination of things. However, I thought it could be controversial just because he was a Confederate general. And so I was like, okay, well, no need to bring up any of that.
Right.
So I was going to name him Jax, was after Stonewall Jackson. And then immediately my mind shifted, well, another man who's incredibly intelligent, a man of character, and universally loved and accepted, and a Marine, was General James Mad Dog Mattis. And I thought it really personified him. Like, I didn't tell you one part of the story of when I selected him is, like, he tested off the charts. I wanted a small dog because I'm a small guy, but he tested too good and I couldn't pass him up. I saw his control work, and his control work was incredible. He's so clear-headed. But he bites harder than any dog I've ever caught. Like any dog. And I've caught hundreds of dogs. Caught means get bit, you put the bite suit on and have a dog attack you. He was the hardest biting dog I've ever caught by far. Like, not even close. So he's a hammer. And when you look at quotes from General James Mad Dog Mattis, it's like
he's a tough dude.
He's a hammer.
Yeah.
His code name on the radio is Chaos Actual. Right, so that's how he likes to describe himself, as chaos. But he's incredibly intelligent. I think he has over 6,000 books in his library that he's read all of them. So anyway, so that's what I named Mattis after, General James Mad Dog Mattis, and it was pretty cool. We started off our first year, and this dog was doing amazing. He's had more apprehensions than any dog we've ever had in the city of Alpharetta combined.
Right.
So he's an amazing dog. He's so good. I tell people all the time, he makes me look a lot better than I am. But the thing that kind of got him on the map was I was going to lunch one day, and I was going down North Point Parkway. And this was, it was traffic on North Point, like, typical. And so there's a lot. And I just saw this car make a movement that was kind of abrupt and not usual. And so I just got behind the car real quick and started running the tag. The vehicle flies away from me. just takes off. I don't have my lights, I don't have my sirens on or anything. He just busts through a red light, changed lanes, so he's up to no good.
He was obviously spooked.
Yeah, and the funny thing was if I had run the tag, it came back to a rental, I would have just continued on to lunch. Like, it would have been like, maybe they're lost. Their GPS is telling them to turn, and they just didn't know. And so I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get my falafel. But what ended up he busted through a red light. Traffic was too thick, and so I couldn't really keep up. I actually canceled myself off of it. But the guy made a U-turn and started heading back towards me, and I was like,
"You moron!"
Oh, that's fantastic. So I was like, "Oh, he just made a U-turn." So I get in behind him again, but traffic lost again. But I could see that he got onto 400 northbound. And so I just gave the lookout and said, he's doing this. And I didn't I turned off my lights and sirens, but got onto 400. And I could kind of see him up in the distance because you're downhill and you're looking uphill. And I saw him get off at Old Milton. I'm like, you get off at Old Milton, and gave the lookout. And it turned out like, you talk about fortuitous for the good guys. He turned into a parking lot that had a police officer that was doing reports. And it's actually, like, if you look at the intersection, because I think your listeners are pretty familiar with this area, it was the intersection of North Point Parkway and Old Milton Parkway, where the Orange Theory is.
Sure.
Right there. And I think there's a Juice King or something. Yep. Whatever. Smoothie King over there. So the upper parking lot.
Talk about landlocked.
Yeah. So the upper parking lot where there's that big drop off, he actually goes off the edge of that where his car is teetering on that. 2 people in the car, one jumps out. There's people in place one way, so I kind of go the other way. People see him running across the street, so I go on the south side of that intersection, back where the Mr. Taco is and stuff. And I know behind there, because I've actually chased people behind there before, it goes down towards the Greenway and Big Creek, that area. There's a retention wall that's behind those restaurants that's about 10 feet high in some places. I thought it was the entire thing was only 10 foot high. Like the place that I had been before was only 10 feet high. I went to the southern side of it, and I see the guy running right at me. And I hit my door popper, which flings his door open, and he knows he's supposed to run next to me. And we're running right at the guy, and I tell the guy, stop. And the guy jumps off the retention wall. And so me and Mattis, I start to jump, and I see that the guy's still falling. I'm like, this is not 10 feet. Yeah. And I grab a hold of the guardrail and catch myself from falling. And I mean, every bone in my body would have shattered.
Sure.
But out of the corner of my eye, I see the worst sight is my dog flying through the air, falling. And I remember his posture. I remember, like, my heart stopping, because it was a 30-foot drop. I see the guy hit the ground, and I see my dog land on top of him. And I'm like, I think I just killed my dog. And if I had done that, I don't know what I would have done.
Right.
Like, this is my best friend in the world. He lands on the guy, and then he looks up at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I felt so good. And I was like, okay, watch the guy. Because the guy was fine. Like, it's what we call perp luck in the industry.
Yeah, sure.
Right? He fell 30 feet.
The hammered drunk guy who drives off a ravine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
He was not injured.
Yeah.
But my dog was not on a bite command, so he just looked up at me. So I told him from 30 feet above, I said, just lay down. And so he laid down, and I moved my dog closer to him. I said, I told my dog to move closer to him, and I said, you move, you're going to get bit. The guy didn't move. We were able to get down eventually, and I got down there, and I checked out Mattis to make sure that he was okay. Like we've been taught canine first aid, and so I'm checking his extremities. He wasn't showing any tenderness or anything like that. And we got a call that the other guy, that they're in a foot pursuit with him. And so they're like, bring the dog over here. I load up Mattis in my car, and we go over to where the other guy is. We end up catching up to him. As he's running away, he sees Mattis, and he gives up. And then Mattis collapsed. He had a lacerated liver, and he was bleeding internally.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he was bleeding out. And that was another heart-stopping moment. And I picked him up, and I told dispatch, I'm like, notify the emergency vet. And we took him as quick as I could down to the emergency vet. And another one, they did x-rays, they didn't see anything, but then they did an MRI. And I had to be back there because they couldn't get him up on the table. He's too big.
Yeah, sure.
And he would flip out on them. And so I'm back there with them, and I'm like, I can get him on the table, and I get him up there. And as soon as they do the MRI, the vet looks at it and says, we got to get him into surgery right now. And that was another time that I was like, that's not good.
Right.
And So anyway, they go in. Coolest thing, our department put it out, social media, and people all over were checking in, seeing how he was. It got all over the place. People praying for him. By the time they opened him up, actually his bleeding had stopped, and he was absolutely fine. So it took him about a month to recover, and he was back on the job. But a long way to get to your question, was the cool part about this was apparently one of General Mattis's former aide-de-camps works in Sandy Springs and heard about the story. So he let him know, hey, this dog that is named after you got hurt. What are you doing? Oh, he's kind of looking at you like he wants some.
Yeah,
get your toy.
You want to go, Mattis?
I don't think you want that. I don't think you want that.
Mattis just stood up and just gave me the you're not right, dude.
What's happening here?
Who is this guy?
We haven't done this before.
I get that on city council most Mondays, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to come and watch that.
You'd have fun.
I'll bring Mattis.
Go on.
It'll be good. So I get an email from General James Mattis that says, hey, I heard your dog was injured. I heard he's named after me. I hope he heals quickly. And thank you for such an honor. And I was like, oh my goodness, because this is like one of my heroes.
Yeah, it's as cool as it gets.
Oh, wow. And so what I did was I wrote him back real quick. And, I didn't expect any kind of answer or anything like that. I just thought it was amazing that he would reach out to me. So I said, sir, I'm a former sergeant with Bravo 15 Infantry. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And this is prior to him
he
being
was not the Secretary of Defense.
No, he was just USMC General retired.
Yeah.
And so I sent him an email back. Thank you so much. I heard great things about you. I want to, honor the Corps, honor your name with my dog. And about 2 minutes later, I get an email back. Bravo 15 is a fine group of men, and I'm very proud, that you would do so. And I was blown away that he would actually get back to me. Not alone send me the initial email, but get back to me. So this is, I don't know if you know this part of the story or not, but fast forward to when he's getting inaugurated as the Secretary of Defense. My wife is like...
Confirmed,
yeah. Right? Yeah. So it's inauguration night of his confirmation. Like he just was on TV. Like I guess it was kind of rumors at that point, but it was right during the day. Like I think 11:49 at night. Right, my wife's like, why don't you send him an email? He's your friend. I'm like,
yeah,
sweetie, he has no time for me.
Real good friends.
Yeah, so I actually sent it to his email address that was prior, and I get a return that it says no longer in service. Like this, that it wasn't one of the ones undeliverable, but it was not using this email any longer. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't have any contact. It's not a big deal. But apparently, he still had access to that email. Because 15 minutes later on inauguration night, he was like, well, nothing confirmed yet, but I appreciate, because I said something about oaths. And I said, it's good to see someone take an oath that means it. And not a knock towards anyone else or trying to get it, but just someone, my entire life has been in service of people. In the Marine Corps, I raised my right hand and took an oath to protect the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. I did it again as a police officer, and I believe in those oaths. And I know that man, when he raised his hand, believes in those oaths. And so I really appreciate someone who takes an oath, that takes it seriously. And so I sent him that email, and 15 minutes later, inauguration night, after he was confirmed now, somehow he got that email and said, thank you. It looks like I'll be needing your prayers. I appreciate you. So it was one of the coolest things.
That is
big fanboy moment.
Well, and that's what's funny. How old are you?
I am 44.
So my dad was born in 1953, so that makes him mid to upper 60s.
Mm-hmm.
He has the same fanboy reaction towards General Mattis or Secretary as he loves his quotes. I mean,
his quotes are legendary. Be polite, be professional, have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
Yeah, but he's certain. But when you were sharing those stories with me, I just thought it was really neat. So let me ask you this. We'll shift gears one more time and I'll let you out of here because I know your dog's got to probably urinate. What's next for the K9 program? Where do you see the program going? What would you what's your vision for it? As a guy who's had had a pretty good stake in it so far. What are your hopes for it?
Well, I would love, and I don't know if I can say that, you might get me into trouble with the rest of the police
No, I
department.
asked you. You're asking. You know. You're
But here I
you're
am.
answering
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, sure. Go for it. You can
'Cause
apologize later.
So I love the philosophy of our department.
This is why Robinson likes me.
Oh, good.
I ask questions to anybody in public.
I love the philosophy of our department and our chief and the way that it's been come down from city councils to enhance the quality of life for those who live, work, and play in the city of Alpharetta. I understand it. I can grab a hold of it, and I can apply it every day to my job. In the K9 unit, I try to do it. You know, we say that we're trying to be excellent in the way that we train, in the way that we deploy, and the way that we relate to the community. Like, those are the three things that I'm trying to hit as K9 unit commander. To better serve enhancing the quality of life of the citizens of Alpharetta, I would like to add an explosives dog.
Yes.
Thank you. Wow, I got to vote. But anyway, I would really like that just because of all the city events that we have. I believe it'd be fantastic.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I believe it does.
How much does one cost? An expensive one.
So basically around 15,000, but that's the dog trained with a handler. That doesn't include the equipment and everything else. There's grants and stuff that you could use, but there's lots of ways that we could do it.
So 50,000.
That was 15.
No.
Oh, total?
Yeah, training and everything.
So training, equipment, vehicle, right?
You're right.
All the stuff they need. It'd be about $50,000 to $60,000.
We have an amphitheater. We've got a bunch of movie theaters. We've got a bunch of mixed use.
Taste of Alpharetta. How many city events do we have every year?
It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And look, your number one job.
Totally getting in trouble for this.
You're as an elected official. I don't make any bones about it. I sit on a board of directors, and I ask every department to bring me their best ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a philosophical world where you pave my roads and you keep me safe and you leave me alone.
I love it.
And that is that is number two, and it's really number one. Some people, when the roads are all closed, they get bent out of shape about it. But I think that's certainly a fair request that I think a lot of people would look at and say, yeah, it makes total sense. That guy may hate or girl may hate the amount of events they have to start going to all the time.
No, it's a ton. It's a huge commitment. But that's K9 in general. Once you sign up for K9, you don't understand what the job entails.
Yep, because I'll see you on a Saturday.
It's a 24-hour day job. Like, it never stops because that dog never stops learning. You're either training or untraining them. So just that alone, you're always working with your dog. So that's one thing, is just the explosives dog is one thing I'd like to increase our deployments in interdiction, highway interdiction, criminal interdiction, and partial interdiction. Trends have shown that the bad guys, the way that they're moving drugs is through the parcel system. United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, all those are it's the number one way that drugs are going in and out. So we have dogs that are capable of locating that, and if we don't want
what
that
post office wouldn't let you wander through there once a day?
There's all kinds of. It's kind of funny, but anyway, and that takes a little bit of work in our department and just the structure that we have now. So that's one thing I'd like to, just ways that we'd like to expand. So increase the size of the unit a little bit by adding an explosive dog. Have a dog available 24 hours a day for every shift. I love what Officer Ritchie is doing with his community relations dog. I think it's fantastic, and I think the schools are loving it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love the way, like, one of the things that we do too is, like, we have Instagram pages for our dogs, and we encourage it with our handlers. We want them to interact with the community. We want them to be transparent, and it's been a fantastic interaction for us. We've absolutely loved it, and I think it's really humanized. It's given us national recognition. It's showing us some of the things that we're doing are pretty good. I'm learning other things. It helps with networking. So just the fact that the city has allowed us to do that has been fantastic. So,
well, I appreciate all you guys do on behalf of our group. It's neat to get people. There are so many people. I should have put this out there that I was going to talk to you today for people, because there will be a ton of questions out there that I should have asked you and didn't. But we'll have you back. And I've told Robinson this. I want to be the bad guy in a training exercise.
So our training
I would love it.
is open.
So if you want to help be a part of a training exercise, are you inviting the public to?
Not the public, but well. So there was just an auction that we had. The entire city of Alpharetta just showed up. I'd have my hands full. I had to take a lot of planning. Yeah, it's open to our command staff. It's open to city council if you ever want to come out. And if you want to learn how to take a bite from a dog, I'll teach you how to take a bite from a dog.
I think it would be fun. I think it would be. Listen, I plan on serving on the city council and having absolutely no regrets. And one of the staples of doing that has to be, I've got it. I'm not going to let anybody tase me because I'm not a psychopath.
It's 5 seconds. It's not that bad.
I've heard people say it's awful.
It's 5 seconds. And then afterwards, you feel like you just had a massage. That 5 seconds is awful.
Yeah.
But after that 5 seconds, you feel really good.
Well, it's interesting. That's a whole conversation for a different day. I expect you to text me and let me know when I can have the opportunity. My kids would be mortified. I probably won't bring them out there, but I definitely want to. I want to put the suit on and give me the 10-second head start and just turn big boy loose.
Yeah, we can do that.
Would he?
You go on the ground.
Oh, I'd have gone on the ground when we first started when he jumped on the table, but. I think it'd be funny to be in the sumo outfit and take off.
Well, and so that's one thing too. The way we train, I don't have a big sumo outfit. I like them thin so you can feel the dog.
Oh, come on, man! Like
Yeah.
I'm volunteering to.
I know.
I need something fluffy.
It's protective.
I'll make it 16.
It hurts.
I'll make the appropriation $16,000 so I can get a fluffy outfit.
No, I won't buy a fluffy outfit.
Hey, Sergeant Mark Tappan, thanks for coming on the Ben Burnett Show this week, and thanks to the App and Media Network for allowing us to do this. If you've got what's the best way to follow your guys on Instagram? Go ahead and pick up some followers.
Nice, I'd like that. All of our dogs, it's ADPS_K9 _ the dog's name. So mine is ADPS_K9 _ Mattis. Sometimes if you put K9 Mattis, you'll be able to find him. We have K9 Raider, we have K9 Drax, and K9 Carlo. And Carlo's spelled with a K, K-A-R-L-O. And then we have one more dog that's coming. Currently, we just call him No Dog. It's kind of caught on #NoDog. I actually got him name tapes, and I got him a jacket.
Well, if I'm going to go ask for the $15,000, I'm going to get you to name him Benji.
Benji.
Yeah, if I'm going to go run down money for you, I'm going to get Ben.
Well, that'd be the new, like if we get an explosive dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want
60. We're talking 60,000 with the vehicle.
He needs a car down too.
Mattis, what are you doing?
So 60. He was looking at me a minute ago like he was going to attack me. Thanks, Mattis. Thanks for coming by today to spend time with us.
I'll have him say it.
Mattis, thank you. Tappan, thanks.
My pleasure.
See you guys next week. That wasn't awful.
No, not at all. Oh, man. Off. Sorry. Off, Legan.
Ben jumped again.